can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like the founders of P90X. Tony Horton talked about how he made money as a street mime before selling hundreds of millions of dollars. That he would actually, Chris put his hat on the street, do street miming to make food and rent money. Okay. I don't like just hearing the successful stuff. I like hearing the tough times too. Baby Einstein founder Julie Clark talked about growing her company to $20 million with 5 employees, selling to Disney. But the most impressive was beating cancer twice. And Atari founder Nolan Bushnell talked about when he was Steve Jobs' mentor. Steve offered him 33% of Apple for $50,000, and why he said no. That and many more, you could go to InspiredInsider.com and check them out. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. And with Rise 25, we help B2B businesses connect to their Dream 100 clients and referral partners. And basically, we help you run your podcast so it generates ROI. But Chris, podcasting is much more personal for me. I don't know if I've even told you this, but it's not just about the business, although it's been the best thing for my business and my life because I've formed amazing friendships, referral partnerships, strategic partnerships, clients. But it was actually inspired by my grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor, and his brother and him were in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. They were only members of their family to survive. And his words and legacy live on because of an interview, because the Holocaust Foundation actually did an interview with him. And now I have put it on my About page. I can watch it every year. He's not alive anymore, but I can watch it. I do watch it multiple times a year, and other people can too. And his legacy lives on. And so, yeah, podcasting will help your business, no doubt. But it helps you and your guests leave a legacy of knowledge beyond. So if you have questions, go to rise25.com. If you have questions, you can email us support@rise25media.com. I believe if you have a business, you should have a podcast, period. Just like Chris believes if you have a business, you should be taking care of your SEO and rankings because that is the lifeblood of your business. So check it out. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Chris Dreyer, who's the founder of rankings.io. And, his company helps elite personal injury firms land serious injury and auto accident cases with Google search. If you want to learn something, what I've learned from studying Chris is focus. Okay? Just focus. And he niches down, and by doing that, he can be really systemized and he can serve the client better. And they are a personal injury law firm SEO agency and serve clients all over the country, and they help them win first page rankings. And he started rankings.io because he saw the legal vertical was underserved, and he saw many of the competitors were not delivering the results they should, and he knew he could do better. And I love this saying, which is true, by the way. They have to have first page results because if you're on the second page, you're dead. And actually, Chris, I would disagree with that. Okay. The way I disagree with it, it's not even the second page. If you're on the lower half of the first page, sometimes you're dead.
True.
Right? Not even the second page. People ask me, Jeremy, how'd you find out about me? I'm like, I went to the third page of Google, which no one goes to. Right. Mm-hmm. But check out rankings.io for more information. They have an amazing company. Chris, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for the intro. Thanks for having me.
I want to dig in a little bit to a couple things. And, with your background, what was your major in college? Because it has nothing to do with marketing.
Yeah, that's funny.
And how you got into this.
So I actually have a history education degree. And
what were you thinking you were going to do in college?
I was going to coach sports. I was going to coach college sports.
You were.
So that was I was really into basketball and just had a passion for it. And to be honest, when I student taught at a high school, they ended up hiring me. And I was there. I rose from their freshman to sophomore to JV coach really quickly. So I was kind of next in line.
This was basketball.
Yep.
Okay.
And basically how I got started was I was in the detention room, the room that they sent the kids that got into trouble. They had to stay an extra hour after school, and there was just nothing to do. It was just kind of like, just taking care of these kids, and I Googled how to make money online, as cliche as that is. And I took Ed Dale's 30-day challenge to make your first $20. I think I made, $10. But it gave me the basis of knowledge to go from there. And by the end of my second year teaching, I was making more affiliate marketing than I was teaching. So I pursued it full time.
What were you selling? What were you an affiliate for?
That's so funny. I rarely get asked that. So how to stain concrete floors. I still have an Amazon.
I thought
book.
you were going to say like erectile dysfunction pills or something, because that's actually a popular. What people don't know, that's a very popular affiliate offer. But anyways, keep going.
Yeah, stain concrete floors. So it's actually, there's an Amazon book still for sale. I also did the acai fruit. I did. Let's see. I sold generators. I sold. I had a site that ranked #1 for double chin. So I sold
Really
stuff to lose weight. Yeah. Alcohol withdrawal. So I had a site that ranked #1 for alcohol withdrawal, alcohol poisoning. That was like more Google AdSense. But
so were you building the sites, getting them the rank? What was your methodology at the time?
So at the time, if you had your white hat good guy, your middle gray hat, or your black hat tactics, I was more on the black hat side. So it was more buying.
If it's gonna get in trouble, do not say it.
No.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of learned what not to do. But back in the day, I was taking the shortcuts. I was buying links, buying content, and I got penalized for that. Around 2011, my income went from, $15K a month in affiliate down to $2K just overnight. So I learned the hard way. So I've really been walking the line ever since.
Yeah. But at the time, was that really something that was you said you should not be doing? Because a lot of people were doing that at the time, right?
Right.
And then Google just decided that's not quality content and slapped people. But I don't know if it's necessarily black hat, like illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, people were doing it and it was totally legal to do. It's just, it was a short-term fix.
You're dead on. It wasn't an evergreen strategy. That's probably a better name for it. I was generating low quality content just to target a keyword. I was acquiring any backlink I could, as opposed to really concentrating on quality.
What was the site affiliate product you were most proud of that was like tough to rank, but you were, churning away?
Ranking #1 for double chin was pretty.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What was your URL? Did you buy like a specific URL for this product? What was it?
And it's down. You could probably see some horrible version of it on archive. But it was loseadoublechin.com.
That's you don't still own it? You should have kept on it.
No, I actually, I let all of the focus thing that you mentioned earlier. I actually made a decent amount of money, and I just let those kind of go away just so that I wouldn't spend any time on them, because my other opportunities was much better. And that's honestly, I probably could have that revenue still, but I just turned it all away and directed my attention.
Yeah, lose double chin. Totally. You were hitting on a huge pain point there.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you everything because I wrote a lot of the original content about the.
What was the product? Was it a digital? Was it like an information product?
There were several. So there was diet and exercise type advice. There was stuff for chin wraps, like sculpting. There was a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So you cut your teeth on that. So how did you decide to transition to not just law firms, by the way, personal injury law? It's a niche within a niche. I mean, you really, focused.
So when my income declined and I was at like $2,000 or $3,000 a month, I knew that I had a specialty though.
Really quickly, because did you quit your job at the time? At what point did you decide to quit and do full time?
Yeah, that's kind of funny. I quit my second year teaching, and then I got paid that whole summer. So I had my affiliate income plus my teacher's income. I even took that teacher's retirement money, threw a big party, got to know people that I was getting mentored by.
Retirement party.
Yeah, it was really funny.
After
But
2 years,
um,
people hated you because of that.
it was a lot of fun, and I
Because
learned a lot.
it's a scary thing to do, right? I
Yeah,
mean, so at that point you were still kind of on the up and up. It hadn't dropped at that point.
right. I was still on the major, the upward trend,
Hmm.
and I even had I had several freelancers. I was really processizing my my affiliate marketing strategies for scale. And when that declined because I wasn't doing the evergreen tactics, I still had a really strong knowledge of digital marketing. So that's why I looked at the agency space, and I worked for a law firm marketing agency. I rose to the top of their company. I was their top guy,
Hmm.
and I got really comfortable in the niche.
Hmm.
I had a great relationship with them personally. I didn't think that they were running the business correctly. So
Like what? I mean, we won't mention names, but what were the things that you knew when you had yours you would do differently?
they weren't managing money for production properly. So there just wasn't enough resources applied to the labor to generate the results. So they would sell a contract, not allow enough resources to give the best chance to succeed.
What else did you see that they were doing that you knew you'd do differently?
They weren't focused on reinvesting into operations and training.
Hmm.
So just a lot of basic business principles, operations, processes, training, continuous improvement. They weren't focused on that. It was more of a sales focused organization, bringing in the revenue, not taking care of the existing clients. And so when I started rankings, and still today, we have one sales guy, we have one marketing guy. Everything else is applied to generating the best results we can for our clients and
Right.
using those results as momentum for referrals.
Hmm. What do, because people say, what do your clients say they like about you in the business? I watched one video and one person said, I love they just call me back immediately, within a few hours. What are some other things that because that will kind of put a light on what you feel is important, probably because it's showing up on what they like.
Yeah, so you hit one of the first significant differences in our organization versus others. Is a lot of times communication and production are all in under one function. I separated account management and operations, so it's clearly defined that these are your communicators. These are the individuals that do production. And I didn't want the people that were talking to the clients to also do production, because they have their head down, so to speak,
Get
only
distracted.
concentrating on doing the work and not necessarily up looking for opportunities in a strategic manner.
Hmm.
So, and that also allows us to better serve the client with faster response times, because that's that person's sole job, is to keep the client informed and to lead them in the project.
How do you manage client communication? Because I imagine clients communicate via email, phone, text, and now like other means. How do you, I won't say train the client, but how do you want them to communicate with your team so you can do a better job and serve them?
So it's funny. Internally, we say, and I think our clients would laugh at this, but we have teach our clients not to be crazy. And what we mean by that is just really setting expectations early. This is how long it's going to take to generate results. This is what we need. This is how you can help us. And we set all of these expectations up front in a 100-day experience.
Hmm.
We got this from Joey Coleman, Never Lose a Customer Again. And in terms of our communication preferences, a lot of it's still driven by email, but we also incorporate video, we incorporate text messaging, in some cases, Slack or Google Chat.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do regular cadences for consults. So early on, when we're trying to set expectations, we will establish a regular meeting cadence so they know when they're going to talk to us.
Mm-hmm. What about internally? What do you prefer? I know you mentioned Slack. Are there any others that you like to use?
Yeah, so Slack is our main communication portal since we run a remote team. We also use Zoom for our video conferencing, and then our main task-based or project management tool we use is Trello. We really like the workflow Kanban style of process, completing tasks. And in terms of just communication in general, tying things into a larger picture, we are fully integrated into the entrepreneurial operating system and Traction.
Nice. Yeah, I've had Gino Wickman on. So how did you come to personal? I mean, you could have been like, yeah, we're going to specialize in law firms, but you decided to niche down even more to personal injury law firms.
So one of the main reasons is I like the challenge. So when you're dealing with, trademark attorneys and these very low competitive types of niches, a lot of times all they need is a website and a landing page and they can practically rank. Personal injury is highly saturated. It's very rewarding if you can get those guys results. And I really like the competitive aspect of it. And I saw that they really needed a specialist in that area of the law.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about some of I like how you have some tools you use to kind of audit someone to really see how much work is it going to take to get them to where you need. But first, you mentioned something you like this. Most people will be the opposite, right? I want to go into something that's, needed, but not as competitive. And you go right head on with the most competitive. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to hear some of the lessons you learned from your dad, because you quoted him saying, always play the game to win, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's it. It sounds kind of like Ricky Bobby, right? But losing is not fun. Winning is.
yeah.
Winning is rewarded. So when we encounter a challenge, we go all in. That's how I was brought up. Even simple games like Yahtzee, it gets almost annoying where we're doing the math and which properties to buy in Monopoly, the orange properties, and very math based. But that's how I approach sports. I was a collectible card game player, similar to Magic, one of the top players. Same in poker. It's just focus, and I think it's rewarding when you get to those top levels.
What other lessons do you take from your dad?
Lessons. So consistency, compounded consistency. I mean, you can't just show up and expect it to be good. I mean, it takes a lot of work.
What did he do? Or does he do?
So just things. So he was a mail carrier for the U.S. Post Office. He's retired now. Very excellent in sports, and just very organized and systematic. So just things like basketball. A lot of times when individuals join a basketball team, the only time they're going to practice is when the coach is telling them to. Whereas we would practice every day, every day, Saturday, Sunday, maybe not a long amount of time, but it just took the work to get to those higher levels.
I want to talk a little about the mentors you've had, coaches, just in general. Who is maybe even a distant mentor? Who are some of your favorite coaches of all time?
Coaches of all time. So Cliff Davis, my junior high basketball coach, just very process oriented. So his practices were structured very well. He was definitely a leader, and he took that consistent approach. And it was very rewarding. We had some great teams because of how he led. He's one that definitely stands out. I had a great high school basketball coach that had a very good physical fitness type of off-season program. Yeah.
I'm like in arm's reach. Like one of my favorite books of all time, if anyone's watching the video, is Wooden, A Lifetime of Observations and Reflection on and off the court. I mean, this is one of my favorite. You could see those like notes coming out of it. Like I read this at least once a year.
Practice the fundamentals.
Yeah. What about mentors or coaches in business? I know that you take this very seriously, and you have mentors in that too.
So my uncle was a CEO of multiple major corporations, and he was one that I always like looked up to and aspired. Originally when I got started, I talked to him, but I would say my first mentor was actually my sister. My sister and my brother-in-law, they run a 30 to 40 person plumbing company
Hmm.
generating $7 to $8 million a year. You can't quite see it, but up here, I was a Vistage member for 3 years.
Hmm.
I I'm in Jason Swink's mastermind, so I have like-minded peers, digital
Hmm.
marketing peers.
Hmm.
I also have an executive coach, Carl Sakis, who's amazing. That holds me accountable because once you're the owner, you're the main person to hold you accountable. So I have someone else now. And then this counts another sounds kind of cliche or cheesy, but I really enjoy getting a lot of knowledge from business books. And I know you read a ton yourself. And I read 50, 60
Yeah.
minimum books a year about business only, not fiction, just all
Yeah.
business books.
What are some of your favorites? I have 4 credits for my Audible queue. So
Yeah,
what
yeah.
are your favorites?
One I find myself reading multiple times is Ready, Fire, Aim.
Michael Masterson. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that book. I just read one recently. Atomic Habits was
Hmm.
excellent. I The Ultimate Sales Machine. I know it's an older book. Chet Holmes, and
Oh yeah, totally.
great one. Pricing Creativity, Blair Enns. Business of Expertise,
I
David C.
printed
Baker.
out the Ultimate Sales Machine. I bought it TDF, and I printed it out and put it in a binder. Yeah. So
Every
back in the
time I
day.
read it, I find just a little nugget that's just excellent. And David C. Baker and Blair Enns. I really like their stuff.
What is their book? I've not heard them.
So Blair Enns did Pricing Creativity.
Mhm.
He also did Win Without Pitching Manifesto. And then David's main book was The Business of Expertise, which really talks a lot about the advantages of niching.
Okay. Nice. What about industry wise? Conferences in the industry, could be in the personal injury law firm or whatever. Just stay on top of the trade.
So the one that I've been to the last 2 years is the Game Changer Summit. That
Hmm.
is Michael Mogul's conference. Crisp Video. It's an excellent conference. They do a lot of team building, but they also do marketing. Have a lot of great speakers. Chris Voss.
Hmm.
A lot of the big players. They had Gary Vee there. In terms of personal injury attorneys, the other conferences that I hear are good, but I don't go to a lot of conferences, are Mass Torts Made Perfect and National Trial Lawyers Association.
Mm.
It's a good event.
That's a must for personal injury law firms.
Yeah. Mass Torts Made Perfect is one that's really incredible in Vegas that I hear a lot of good things about too.
Nice. Now, from the the auditing standpoint, I like you have a very systematic approach. It's like, okay, you have this law firm. Here's what we charge. You don't necessarily do that. You actually have this process where you walk through, and so you give them a real specific, kind of detailed approach. Talk a little bit about what you do there.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of mirroring an attorney, right? An attorney doesn't go to trial without doing a discovery and getting all the information about the case. Like a lot of times, these SEO agencies will just one call close and sell you on a $2,000 or $3,000 contract without knowing anything about what it's going to take to get results. So we do what I call a full SEO discovery, where we are going to diagnose
Yeah.
everything in regards to SEO. So it's not just an SEO audit where you're auditing a website. We do competitive backlink analysis. We review content. We review their assets for social proof, and we look at their top ranked competitors and what they're doing well, and what any opportunity that we can use as leverage. We try to discover in this diagnosis.
Yeah. That's super valuable for a company for you to go through that. How do you decide to charge for that?
So that's the tricky part with SEO, right? PPC and these others it's very data driven. You can spend X, get this amount of cases.
Yeah.
The way
I
that
mean,
we
I
do
just
it,
mean even the front end one, like actually you presenting that to them.
yeah, I mean, we charge $5,000 for this diagnosis, this SEO discovery, and
Yeah.
I can tell you that we're not making any money. We're losing money on this initial.
Yeah, it's a lot
So
of
if a
work.
client didn't proceed further, it's a loss leader by all definitions.
Yeah.
But to me, it's important that we understand the ins and outs of what this client has, and it lets us set realistic expectations. If you're in a major metro and you're a solo in Los Angeles and you want to rank on the first page for car accident lawyer, it's going to take a heavy investment because you have no brand, you have no prominence that can help, no mentions that we can use as leverage. But if you're an established brand, established firm, maybe you have some assets that we can use to get you there quicker.
Do you find that lawyers or law firms some are sophisticated enough to use some of those tools, not necessarily to execute on what you do, but just to see what's going on, or do they not even realize there's some of these tools out there?
Oh yeah. So the larger firms, a lot of times what we've encountered is the owners are more that, in the DISC personality assessment, they would be more the DI drivers. A lot of times they hire that internal process analytical person to strategically communicate with the vendors that they hire. And many times those individuals, those directors of marketing, those CMOs, those all different types of titles, technology directors, those individuals are familiar with those tools.
Chris, as you get more and more specific and niche, you can produce better results, which means you could charge more. Tell me about the pricing evolution you've gone through, in the very beginning to now. Obviously, it's probably changed a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are three basic models that you'll see. So the first one will be your inputs. So an agency will charge you per hour. They'll have a per hour rate. So it's like a capacity type setup. The second would be output. So that would be like units, like X amount of content, X amount of articles. And then the last is more results or value. Okay, so you want to get that first page result. What are you willing to pay? What's it worth? And then with that model, it's a little bit harder to sell. You have to do these diagnoses. You have to unveil your expertise, but it allows the agency owner to iterate and do whatever's possible to get results because you're not tied into a unit thing that you need to change in the future. Keep these change orders. So we do more results or value-based pricing. And so you won't see an itemized, we're going to do X amount of content, X amount of links. We're going to do whatever it takes. And we expect the client to fire us if we don't. So there's that expectation of we have to generate results or you're going to leave. It's not, we're going to put you on this low retainer and keep you forever.
On that, let's just say in a personal injury law firm, I don't know what an average client case is or something, but let's just make it up. And, let's say it's $100,000 or something. Let's say the first month they work with you, first few months, they get like 30 cases. Okay. And it's like, great. We just paid for these people for a long time. Right. Do you find that, is it what have you done for me lately type of scenario? So like in month 8, they're like, okay, you haven't done anything, but like, wait, a couple months ago, we got you like 30 cases, or do they tend to remember that and like give you a little slack as far as building that out?
I'd say that accounts department, that person that's in charge of communication, that's a really important component because it's natural for individuals to forget when they had a big win. So they need that reminding. We do a baseline report every engagement. Here's your rankings and traffic when you started. And then we remind them, like, here's the percentage growth in 6 months. Like, look at the increase. Like, that's where we started. Here's where we're at now. So those retrospectives. And yeah, it goes in. So you bring up something else that's kind of interesting is the value of a case is different. So it depends on if they're going to try the case and go to the court and litigate. And most of the time, those are serious injuries and can be, those are the ones you want to litigate. And those case values are extremely high versus, I don't want to say settlement bill, but where you're settling with the insurance companies before going to court. Those cases typically are a lot less. And there's a whole different situations for staffing. There's advantages and disadvantages when it comes to SEO. For example, one of the big driving factors for local SEO is reviews. Well, if your case selection is so tight where you only work with these major injuries, the amount of cases you're closing is low, so you have less chance to get reviews versus someone that's taking the minor injuries and really settling a lot of cases. They can get a lot of local reviews to help their SEO.
What are, speaking on that for a second, I do want you to tell, there's a story about your biggest client a couple of years in. I'll have you tell that in a second, but for any local business, like plumbing company, your sister and brother-in-law, right? I always knew plumbing. If your toilet doesn't work, you'll pay whatever amount of money to a plumber to fix that thing,
Right.
So, but what are some, tips that other local businesses could be using that you use, obviously, in one of the most competitive niches?
I would highly recommend anyone looking for an SEO agency to do some form of diagnosis or audit before any engagement is pursued. It's essential to have the strategy first. Pareto's principle, the 80-20, strategy is one of the most important components. And that's what I would say. It wouldn't matter if it was plumbing, home services, physicians. It would be to do a full discovery and analysis first.
Mm-hmm. And any particular tools people should look at that you like?
So my favorite SEO tool is ahrefs.com. I also like SEMrush. I think those have they're pretty versatile. They do a lot of things. I think Ahrefs is a little bit more intuitive, a little bit easier to use. But both of those tools are phenomenal. They can give you a lot of competitor insights to help you make decisions with your SEO strategy.
Biggest client a couple years in. What happened?
So that's funny. So I remember I was working from home, but my biggest client, it was like the end of year one, and you gotta, I hear a lot of stories where people sign $100 and $500 clients, or they traded coffee subscriptions and things. My biggest was $3,500 a month, and I remember that he wanted to meet in person before he did it. So he said, "Hey, let's meet at a halfway point. We'll just, hit up a restaurant." Well, the town that he picked, there was literally nothing. There was a gas station, and it had one of those gas stations connected to like a Hardee's. So I went in, and there was like stuff all over the floor, and I'm just like, what am I gonna do? And instead of meeting in there, he actually got in my SUV, in my car with me, and we signed the deal in the parking lot in my car. He just wanted to have that last reassuring moment, and that's what happened.
He wanted to a real human being. He just wanted to.
Absolutely, yeah.
What about now? What does that look like now? Because obviously you have clients all over the country. Is it less frequent that people don't care about that as much because of like technology of just going video chat, or do you find people still want you to show up in person at some point?
It's very rare that they want me to show up in person. In fact, I can't recall a situation in the last 2 years that was the case. But I think our reputation and clout has grown to where it's not some unknown person doing the marketing. They already actually know me from some aspect, and most of our leads are referrals. So it has that extra point of trust because of the person referring to us.
Yeah, it seems important for you to have the team in place, the system in place. What's important to you as far as hiring and culture? How do you maintain a culture and hire properly?
That's a good question. So one of the advantages of owning a remote company is when we want to hire talent, we can open it up to the entire United States. So there's a lot more applicants. So we have a very tedious hiring process. We'll start with an initial posting, whether it's on Indeed or other sites, to get the resumes or the applicants. I just like saying resume because I haven't looked at a resume in 2 years. We then do an initial proof of knowledge, whether it's a quiz or some type of test or assessment. We then use Spark Hire, which is a video platform.
It's based in Chicago, actually, I believe.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So I remember when I started, I would interview someone, but I couldn't, even if I took great notes, I couldn't remember, the individual, because we would go through a lot of interviews. And so Spark Hire, doing that initial recording, it could be used as a reminder, and then also as a future recruiting tool. If a person wasn't a right fit for what I was hiring currently, they may be one for a different position in the future. So we Spark Hire, and then after that we do a hire in on the phone type of interview. But there's a lot of steps to it. It's like crawling through glass, so to speak. It's not just looking at the resume and having some conversations. There's more to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What are some ways you weed people out? And I was talking to someone the other day, and they'll put something in the description, like include a PDF attachment of your resume, and they don't do that. And this person was saying, 70% of people don't even do that step. So I don't know if you have any of those weed out tricks.
Our biggest one for SEO specialists is a quiz. Only 3 to 4% pass the quiz.
How many?
3 to 4%.
Wow.
It's timed and it is difficult. So that weeds out a ton. Other positions will do attach a cover letter, specifically say attach a cover letter in multiple locations, and they don't. We just fast fail them, even though they may be great, but we fast fail them.
Yeah.
That quiz is the number one thing that we use.
Yeah. What about daily routine or weekly routine? What's important to you? And because I bring that up because you are doing this crazy challenge right now, which I'll have you talk about.
Yeah. So, I got this from Atomic Habits, the book I mentioned. It's, if you want to achieve a goal, it's best to change your process, your daily habits, in order to hit that goal and really reward yourself for the journey. And so it's just these minor changes. One of the biggest ones for me is self-improvement, self-learning. So I have a morning routine where, after I get my cup of coffee, I am listening to an audiobook or reading. And I have a certain amount of time set there. And then on my commute to work, which it's not very far, and we're a remote company, but I do have a headquarters, small headquarters. But so I'll listen to the audiobook on the way to work and the way home. So I'm fitting in time to continually improve and learn.
So what are you doing with this challenge? I don't know if you want to pull.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, if it's handy for the video, do you have it handy? That
yeah, I might.
So
I don't know. Kind of.
Okay. So what is this exactly?
This is Seth Godin. It's a flag. So basically, Seth's famous for his consistency. He's been writing a daily blog and hasn't missed for like years. So he writes 365 blogs a year, and I like to set these like extreme challenges, these 10x Grant Cardone style challenges, to really push myself. And so I'm doing 365 blogs in February, in a month. So there's a lot of process changes, tactical things that go into that in order to have the ability to even fulfill that. And so it's just kind of like a personal challenge I'm doing.
Does this count as one of them?
No.
Oh, it does not.
It doesn't count.
You mentioned reward. I find that a lot of hard charging entrepreneurs I know are really bad with rewarding themselves. They just kind of push the goalposts further. oh, we hit that. Oh, awesome. But we could be doing this. So what do you do to reward yourself?
I'm not the best at that. I will say this. My coach, I mentioned him earlier, Carl Sakis, we have a reward and consequence. And the reward I set every month. So sometimes it's a massage, and it forces me to schedule that massage or to get a new pair of shoes. In the office, I really wanted a cool piece of art. So after we hit a certain size retainer, we bought a big piece of art up front. But then there's the consequence. So it's the painful things that I don't want to do. Or one of mine, I'm not going to say because there's things you don't talk about, political, whatever. But
Consequence meaning, Chris, like if you don't hit the goal,
if I don't hit the
or
goal,
if you don't give yourself a reward.
No, if I don't hit the goal.
Got it. Okay.
So I've had one where I send cash to an ex party, political party, because I don't want to do that.
There's apps for that, right? Like you can actually go on and they have those things that whatever, like a white supremacist like site or something like that. If you don't hit the goal, or I forgot what
I'm not that extreme.
No, but there's a bunch of ones that people make a bet, but it forces you. It creates enough pain that you're gonna like, okay, there's an extra pain driver there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always done really well with business goals, but like health and exercise, I'm struggling at. So sometimes my consequence, which healthy people wouldn't think it's a consequence, would be like, okay, I have to sign up for a 5K. I do not want to run this 5K. Right? So that might be a consequence.
So I hope it's not a health goal that the punishment is actually getting healthier.
No, but sometimes it's stuff like that. I mean, I'm trying to improve my healthy habits. But there's some things, like it may even be, I had a personal trainer and, I'd work out 3 or 4 times a week, but there are certain exercises that are good for you that I just don't want to do, like deadlifts, right? So it'd be like, okay, it's a negative, it's a consequence, but it's still good for me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a funny comedian bit about 2 people. I won't go into it. About one, was exercising. Why don't you just run? You get this runner's high. And the guy was like, no, I've done drugs. It's nowhere near what a high actually is. I forget which talk show it was. I don't know if it was Howard Stern or someone, but Chris, that's super valuable too, because you're not only rewarding, but sometimes we're driven more by pain than pleasure, right?
Yep.
So putting that in place. You mentioned referrals. Referrals are big for you. What are some good ways for people to think about referrals and to, give to their current customers or advocates?
It's a great question. So our number one source of lead gen is referrals, and it's not client referrals, it's non-client referrals. What I mean by that is one of the best advantages of niching down into a narrow focus is we have to say no to a lot of other individuals that come to us. So if a bankruptcy attorney comes to us, we don't do that. We only work with personal injury lawyers. So we can refer out to strategic partners, and it sets up C.L. Donnie's reciprocity. We send so many leads, people want to continue to get those. So when a personal injury attorney comes to them, they may send that to us.
Yeah. I always tell people the best way to get referrals is to give a referral.
Yes.
It's very simple.
It's the best. Yep.
Yeah. Chris, first I want to say thank you. I have 2 last questions. Everyone should check out rankings.io, but I always ask, since it's Inspired Insider, what's been a challenging moment, low moment, and what's been a proud moment on the other end?
Good question. Challenging moment would be probably, I think, over 3 years ago, overhiring. I think every business owner experiences that, and weren't using leading lagging indicators well enough, and overhired, didn't forecast properly. So that kind of hurt our cash flow, and that was a learning experience for sure.
How do you navigate that?
We're EOS and traction really helped. Profit First, Mike McCallowitz really helped. So we are looking at the numbers on a weekly basis as leading indicators. So things like accounts receivable, money out on the street, so to speak. We know who owes us money, and we're not letting it go too long. We have an AR 30 plus, so accounts receivable 30 plus out on the street that we know that we need to keep hitting them to get the money, or we shut down the service. Hard lessons learned like that. Great people, but if they don't pay you, can't do money for free. So those are some difficult ones. Some exciting ones, I would say, Inc. 5000 back to back last 2 years. Those are probably some really good accomplishments. For our clients, we've got, I think the rewards are our clients. We've got a client ranking #1 nationwide for car accident lawyer. We got #1 in Chicago, Philadelphia, and Houston for car accident lawyer, major metros. So those are some really exciting wins too.
What about, like you mentioned, is rewarding when you get your clients results. Do you remember a specific company or case when they were extremely appreciative above and beyond? Was there anything like that was especially rewarding?
Oh yeah. So we've been flown out to Clearwater, been put up in the nicest resort. We've got some tremendous gifts, and yeah. So I would say flying out to location, they sent us on trips and things like that have been really cool.
Yeah. People should check out rankings.io. Anywhere else we should point people towards online?
Rankings.io is the main, but if you guys want to connect with Chris Dreyer at LinkedIn, I accept all connection requests.
Say that one more time. It faded out for a second. Chris Dreyer at LinkedIn.
Yeah, Chris Dreyer at LinkedIn. I accept all connection requests.
Cool. I expect nothing less from you to be focused on rankings.io. We should not send anyone else to anywhere else except for rankings.io. Chris, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Jeremy, thank you so much for having me.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.